To His Coy Mistress by Andrew Marvell is a very entertaining and powerful seduction poem where Andrew Marvell is really setting out to win his lady, and indeed, not very thinly disguised. He's obviously after, I think, sexual favour, certainly a return of his own passions. But has a great power, and the interesting thing is to follow this as an argument, because it is how it's presented. He presents a case, if you like, for why he should be able to win her and enjoy her favour. And the best way is to look at it across the three stanzas and take it one step of the argument at a time. Here's Andrew Marvell. He's a Yorkshireman. I think you have to bear that in mind. He becomes later in his life MP for Hull and moves in quite exalted circles, but living a life of intrigue very often. And poems weren't published till after his death. But here we have a certain amount of Yorkshire reality and grit, I like to think, that comes through in this. And there's a lot of humour that's involved in here, although one would think that the poem certainly ends with an urgent tone, which suggests a sort of a deep passion. So in this first stanza, what he's doing is saying, okay, here's the deal. If we had all the time in the world, then your coyness, your shrinking from familiarity, or your reluctance to commit to our relationship or to our sexual engagement would be in order, because we would have all the time that we needed. And what he does here, through hyperbole, through exaggeration, in a gentle but satirical way, undermines this whole notion of sort of courtly love. You know, I should be able to pay my due respects to you in a way that befitted your deserts. But he subverts this. He sort of undercuts it with one or two little bits of humour as he goes through. And he stretches the whole thing out. So if we had all this time, we could walk and sit. You should be able to spend time by the Ganges in India. Interesting first little bit of sort of deflating. I by the tide of Humber would complain, which is a very different setting and scenario, but one that he's familiar with. But then he exaggerates, in terms of time. I would love you 10 years before the flood. Capital F, referring to the story of Noah in the Bible, an antediluvian period. And then he stretches as far back as that, and then stretches way into the future. And you should, if you please, refuse till the conversion of the Jews, which, as St. Paul writes in Romans, is something that is really towards the end of time. Then he uses this very interesting adjective, my vegetable love. And there's again a sort of twinkle in the eye here as he uses this word. Vegetables grow length, over a long period of time and grow larger. And there's something quite almost grotesque in this particular image. My vegetable love should grow vaster than empires and more slow. And so let's allocate the time, shall we? 100 years going to praise your eyes and on your forehead. 200 to adore each breast. 30,000 to the rest. I mean, let's just be wild in our exaggeration. Obviously, he subverts the whole notion of this by this sort of wild hyperbole. A little chill enters in here in line 18, and the last age should show your heart. And there's almost a suggestion that, how genuine are these affections if they're willing to be coy and to postpone what I'm after. And then this lovely Yorkshire tone. For lady, you deserve this state, nor would I love at lower rate. But what he's doing is of course, he's itemising her graces and her virtues, and it's almost like he's measuring it out as a merchant. Well, we'll give 100 years to this, 200 years to this. I wouldn't love at lower rate, but it brings in that sort of marketplace in terms of love, which suggests obviously that this is very much stuff of unreality. Speaking of reality, and then we get a real chill comes in. In fact, it's often referred to in critical circles as a Marvellian chill, because the second stanza, line 21, begins with, "But at my back I always hear time's winged chariot hurrying near." And this sort of behind him, always, he says, there is this reminder of death, time running out, time's winged chariot. And it's a very, introduces a very sort of powerful but chilling look. Here's all this exaggerated tone. There's gentle humour involved. Then suddenly the reality begins to bite, and actually the imagery he uses and the diction here really brings things not just down to earth, but in one sense literally almost beneath the earth. "Yonder all before us lie deserts of vast eternity." The use of the noun deserts there suggests nothing growing in the future. It's not an eternity of future that is prosperous, that is productive. It's deserts. And the reality is, "Thy beauty shall no more be found, nor in thy marble vault shall sound my echoing song." Basically, you will die. Memento mori, be mindful of death. And this is what it is. And in fact, it really begins to be, in one sense, quite crude. "Then worms shall try that long-preserved virginity." That which you've been holding on to, and keeping from men, worms shall assail you in the grave, and your quaint honour turn to dust, and meanwhile into ashes all my lust. Dust and ashes. The whole imagery here is to do with death, of course. And then again, this sort of rather grim humour. "The grave's a fine and private place, but none, I think, do there embrace." So that second stage of his argument is being carried through, and it really brings a whole sort of chill into the room, as it were. And then the tone shifts into another gear in the third stanza, because, as we've seen, this is presented as an argument, and the third stanza begins, "Now, therefore." So that's a sort of an argument-introducing word, isn't it? So, in conclusion, in the light of all this, in particular what I've been talking about in this last stanza, let's basically get it on. In the light of the fact that we haven't whirled enough in time, that's all hypothetical. We have the whole mood here, subjunctive, had we but whirled enough in time. It's not possible. The reality in the second stanza. So now, and here he gets a real sort of grip on the whole idea. And notice how we have words here and imagery that's very powerful, very sensual, and almost sexual, we might suggest. "While the youthful hue sits on thy skin like morning dew, and while thy willing soul transpires at every pore with instant fires, now let us sport us while we may." So while we may and have the opportunity now, carpe diem, let's seize the day, seize the opportunity while we're young. Not only while we're youthful, but while thy willing soul transpires at every pore with instant fires. There is a passion within you. It's almost coming through your skin. Let us release that passion. Let's grasp it. Let's make the most of it. Very powerful in the centre of this is this image, which is a simile. And now, like amorous birds of prey. What an interesting, it's almost oxymoron here. It's a contrast. Amorous birds of prey. I mean, amorous birds, yes, birds of love, but birds of prey, of course, that sort of feast on living things. So the whole sort of image here is that we will sort of feast almost on each other. Like amorous birds of prey, rather at once our time devour than languish in his slow chapped power. Let's not time sort of kind of chew us up, over a long period of time. Rather, let us devour our time and, devour each other. Let us roll all our strength and all our sweetness up into one ball. Here again, the sort of tightness of the picture and the tightness of the language. Roll, strength, ball, suggests passion and concentrated sort of effort and desire and experience. And tear our pleasures with rough strife through the iron gates of life. Let's just really, rather than just let things go as they are, let us